Hello, today we're going to talk about the truth about as-is contracts. It's not always what you think it is. In fact, I've written an article in the news press which will be published this weekend, so you can check it out, or on our blog at blog.topagent.com. So what is the truth about as-is contracts? The truth is buyers like them because they have a way to back out for any reason. They don't even have to give a reason. Sellers kind of like them because they think they're done with the negotiating. They sell it for X price and then they're done. What they don't realize is buyers treat it as a second bite at the apple in negotiating. So they'll come back and say, look, this report has all these things. I either want all these things fixed, some of them which may have been known, some of them may be unknown, or I want a credit. And they, like I said, it's the second bite at the apple in terms of negotiating. The sellers didn't really want to use a standard contract because they didn't want to be obligated to pay some unknown portion. But they might regret it later because the second bite at the apple, negotiating-wise, sometimes turned out to be more costly than what the repairs would have been for whatever came up in the report. Keep in mind, the standard contract is very specific about what is covered and what is not covered. And as is contract, nothing is covered, but nothing is out of bounds because the buyers just want to negotiate or they want assurances. If they had used a standard contract, they're not quite as nitpicky because the contract clearly states cosmetic items typically aren't included and the appliances need to be in working condition. If they are, you don't get money off, a lot of different things. So just the mindset of the buyer is different on a standard contract versus that as is. So if you think you're saving money using as is, it might end up costing you a lot of money. What else did I put in the article? Buyers can back out of the contract. So sellers like the standard contract in that the buyers can't just back out for any reason or no reason at all. So you pretty much know you've got a sale so long as the buyer can fulfill all the other terms of the contract, like financing contingency or anything else they must fulfill. So that's a big thing. Also, one disadvantage to the buyer is when we put a property pending, we have to put it in the MLS as pending contingent. That means other buyers can still shop it, look at it. They can even write backup offers or just express to the listing agent like, hey, if anything falls apart of that deal, we're very interested. That way, when the buyer comes in and says, hey, we want X amount of dollars, we're not closing, the seller kind of knows I got this other buyer in my back pocket, and they'll even pay more money than the first buyer. So you got to be careful how you negotiate things if you're the buyer. The other thing is if you ask it a certain way, now you've made a counteroffer to the seller. The seller can say, no, the deal's off. If you put in a request, depending on how you rephrase it, the seller can say no, and if the buyer wants to stay in the deal, they can say, okay, or would you take this, would you do that? So a lot of intricacies. It pays to have a good agent both on the buy side and the sell side that understands how these contracts work. The final point I would make is when you do an as-is contract, there's two sides to every story. The seller thinks it's final, it's over. And the buyer thinks it's just the start of negotiations. So two different ways to look at that contract. Take a look at that standard contract and see if that might make sense for you. Have your agent explain the pros and the cons, or read our article at the news press this weekend, news-press.com, or blog, even better yet, blog.topagent.com. It'll be there. Thanks for tuning in.